The day we moved into the neighborhood, our new neighbor sued me. She sobbed hysterically, accusing my son of assaulting her daughter. My Tiffany just turned 18, and that sick pervert Buddy ruined her. That worthless piece of trash clearly raised by wolves deserves the death penalty. Her daughter also insisted it was my son. Buddy told me he'd choke me if I didn't take off my clothes. I was so scared. Boo-hoo. At her words, the jury and the public were enraged, demanding severe punishment for my son. That animal, this Buddy is an absolute monster. Punish him severely. Don't let this demon Buddy get away with it. But when the judge called my son to the stand, everyone in the courtroom froze. In court, Brenda glared at me fiercely, as if she wanted to skin me alive. Her daughter Tiffany was sobbing dramatically, tears streaming down her face, her eyes filled with pain and terror. I looked at the mother and daughter coolly, repeating my stance. My son did not assault Tiffany, and he couldn't have. Find the real culprit. Don't you dare try to pin this on my son. Until today, I never imagined I'd be facing Brenda and Tiffany in court. The day my son and I moved into the neighborhood, Brenda was so friendly, helping me with my luggage, saying we were neighbors now and I should come to her if I needed anything. When she heard I had a son during our chat, her face lit up, and she introduced her daughter Tiffany, calling it fate. However, that very night, she came banging on my door with a disheveled Tiffany, accusing my son, Buddy, of assaulting her. I was stunned, then quickly explained that my son would never do such a thing. But Brenda wouldn't listen. She was convinced my son did it, and Tiffany cried along, claiming my son dragged her from the hallway to the rooftop and assaulted her. No matter how I tried to explain, the mother and daughter were like hungry wolves who had found their prey, relentlessly clinging to my son. They even demanded a $1 million settlement and insisted my son marry Tiffany, or they'd call the police and make sure he rotted in jail. I knew my son couldn't have assaulted Tiffany, and the $1 million compensation was absurd. I flat out refused the mother and daughter's demands. I never expected them to sue me. I firmly denied everything, and Brenda instantly blew up. Impossible? You, Cassandra, open your damn eyes and look at Tiffany's injuries. Brenda tore open Tiffany's jacket, revealing shocking, livid bruises on her body. These black and blue marks, your animal son did this to her. My Tiffany is only 18. Tiffany trembled as she looked at me, her eyes brimming with tears. Cassandra, Buddy did all this. He even threatened to choke me if I didn't take off my clothes. I was so scared. Brenda hugged Tiffany, comforting her. Both mother and daughter burst into tears right there in the courtroom, and I, the mother of the alleged aggressor, watched them with cold indifference. The crowd in the jury box pointed at me, yelling, "Shameless. Her own son did something so heinous and she's still denying it. Poor Tiffany, so young to go through something like this. It'll haunt her forever." The criticisms rained down on me, but I didn't care, acting as if it had nothing to do with me. Tiffany cried even harder. "I'm only 18. How can I face anyone after this? How am I supposed to live? Boo-hoo." She cried and pounded her head, her despair moving many in the room to tears. Brenda was heartbroken, pointing her finger at me. "You, Cassandra, you have a child too. How can you be so heartless? If your daughter was the victim today, would you still be this cold?" I scoffed. "My son is being slandered. What's wrong with me defending him?" I knew perfectly well that my son, Buddy, was absolutely incapable of doing such a preposterous thing. But in their eyes, I was just making excuses. The whispers from the jury and the public grew louder. This woman is incorrigible. To protect her son, she's lost all basic conscience. The courtroom instantly became a chaotic mess. The judge frowned and slammed his gavel down. "Order. Since both parties have conflicting statements, please present your respective evidence." At his words, Tiffany's lawyer immediately stood up, stating righteously, "Your Honor, my client has sufficient evidence to prove that the defendant, Buddy, assaulted my client, Tiffany." She motioned for Tiffany to recount the events of that night. Tiffany took a deep breath, her voice trembling as she began to describe the alleged incident. "That night at 10 o'clock, I was walking home from tutoring, and the elevator in that building was broken, so I had to take the stairs. Just as I reached the 26th floor, someone suddenly covered my mouth from behind. I struggled desperately, but Buddy was very strong. He dragged me directly to the rooftop, threatening me to play with him." I raised an eyebrow and pressed her. "How are you so sure that person was my son, Buddy?" Tiffany met my gaze, choking back a sob. I definitely know. I saw his face. Buddy forced me to take off my clothes, and I desperately shook my head, refusing. But he just raised his hand and grabbed my neck. He said he'd choke me to death if I didn't obey him. I was too scared, so I had no choice but to give in, boo-hoo. By this point, she was crying so hard she could barely breathe, clutching tightly at the hem of her clothes. Everyone sympathized with her plight, but only I knew she was lying. I pointed it out publicly. "Tiffany, you're lying!" Tiffany flinched, trembling all over, then uncontrollably shrieked back at me. "Lying? Cassandra, why would I lie about something so sacred as my purity? Why are you so cruel and keep pushing me? Just look at my injuries. Look at how your son tortured me." She frantically tore at her clothes, revealing more bruises of varying depths. Tiffany's lawyer hugged the distraught Tiffany, sternly scolding me. "Defendant, how dare you say my client is lying? Tiffany's injuries are irrefutable proof. Your baseless accusation is a second victimization of the victim." I coldly looked at the indignant lawyer, saying each word distinctly. If she had truly seen my son, she wouldn't be saying such ridiculous things. The day my son and I moved, the only child Brenda and Tiffany saw was me. My son, Buddy, had never shown his face to them, not once. If they had ever seen my son, they would absolutely never pin a crime like assault on him. Tiffany's lawyer scoffed at my words. "Defendant, is your son some kind of celebrity that my client, Tiffany, would be so eager to tarnish her own reputation just to falsely accuse him?" Tiffany chimed in. "I really did see Buddy. I saw him coming out of his house when I was going to tutoring. We rode the elevator down together and he said his name was Buddy, and he was the new neighbor." Brenda pointed her finger at me, screaming, "You, Cassandra, don't think you can muddy the waters here and get your son off the hook. Tiffany saw your son with her own eyes. She even knows his name. You can't deny it." I watched the mother and daughter play off each other, finding it laughable. Tiffany spoke with such conviction because the hallway and the rooftop were surveillance blind spots. The mother and daughter exploited those blind spots, which is why why they dared to fabricate such blatant lies. I didn't bother arguing with them further. Instead, I turned to the judge. Your Honor, the plaintiff's testimony contains numerous contradictions and inconsistencies. It's simply not enough to corroborate the alleged assault by my son, Buddy. Brenda, seeing the judge acknowledge my point, grew anxious. She abruptly stood up from her chair, pointing her finger at me, shrieking, "Contradictions? Inconsistencies? You, Cassandra, stop trying to confuse everyone. Every word my daughter says is true, and her injuries are the proof." I smirked. You want to convict my son with just a couple of sentences? The law isn't something you can fool around with. Brenda's face flushed with anger at my words, and Tiffany almost fainted from crying. The jury members thought I was being unreasonable, and their criticisms grew louder. The mother is so trashy, no wonder her son is a monster. They spoke one after another, trying to force me into submission. But I stood tall, my back straight, my cold gaze sweeping over the jury. I sneered. Everyone, the truth has not yet been determined. Don't let yourselves be used as pawns. They didn't know the facts and were just spouting nonsense based on their so-called sense of justice. Truly foolish. My words choked them for a moment, then someone retorted, "Used as pawns? Your son clearly did something awful and you're trying to deny it." Exactly. Tiffany is a young girl. Why would she joke about something like this? Brenda, seeing that someone was on her side, gained more confidence. She shot me a sinister glance, a hint of triumph in her eyes. "You, Cassandra, you kept saying there wasn't enough evidence, right? Well, now open your eyes and look. I'd like to see how you'll deny the evidence laid out before you." After she spoke, she exchanged a look with her lawyer, who then pulled out a document and publicly displayed it. "This document I'm holding is proof of bodily fluids belonging to the defendant Buddy, extracted from my client, Tiffany." This statement exploded in the courtroom like a thunderclap. Everyone's eyes were fixed on that so-called report, including mine. Tiffany's lawyer held up the document triumphantly as if proclaiming victory. "This report shows that on Ms. Tiffany's intimate clothing and relevant body parts, DNA highly consistent with the defendant's son, Buddy, was detected. Ms. Cassandra, the evidence is irrefutable. What do you have to say now?" I looked at the lab report held high by the lawyer, not a hint of panic on my face. I hadn't expected Brenda to go this far, even fabricating evidence. I slowly stood up, my gaze sweeping over Brenda, Tiffany, and their lawyer, who thought victory was assured. My voice was calm but held undeniable power. "The report is fake. I don't believe it." "Fake?" Tiffany's lawyer sounded like she'd heard the funniest joke as she distributed copies of the report to the judge and jury. "Ms. Cassandra, this report was issued by the city hospital and bears its official seal. It has legal validity. You just say it's fake?" Tiffany looked up at me, resentment etched on her still tear-streaked face. "Cassandra, you don't accept my testimony. You don't accept the hospital report. How can you be so shameless? Do you really want to drive me to my death?" With that, she began banging her head against the corner of the table. The dull thudding echoed through the courtroom. Brenda screamed, terrified, and lunged forward to embrace her daughter. "Tiffany, don't do anything foolish. If something happens to you, how will I live?" Seeing this, the judge immediately ordered people to intervene, his gavel slamming down with earth-shaking force. "Plaintiff, please control your emotions and refrain from extreme actions. Regardless, the law will give you justice." At the judge's words, Tiffany's agitated state slowly calmed. Brenda hugged her daughter, her eyes fixed on me with venomous hatred. "You, Cassandra, if your son doesn't confess today, I'll die right here in front of you, and even as a ghost, I won't let you or your son off the hook." The jury and public chimed in, wishing my son would be executed on the spot. His DNA matched, and they still want to deny it? These Cassandras are truly shameless. Tiffany's lawyer spoke righteously. "Ms. Cassandra, the law will not let any criminal go unpunished. Your son, Buddy, must pay the price for assaulting my client, Tiffany." Everyone waited for the verdict for my son and me. The judge cleared his throat and prepared to make his final inquiry to me. I met the judge's gaze, answering each word clearly and distinctly. "Your Honor, my evidence is my son. I request that my son, Buddy, be summoned to testify."